is receiving them. When Vladimir Putin meets with Xi Jinping, the agenda that they're going to be talking on has already been agreed to, including peace plan. Whatever Xi Jinping has that he's going to bring, Vladimir Putin has already read, consulted with his people, modified it, and put it on the table. And this is why it's important, because this isn't a trip that's meant to accomplish nothing. If it was going to accomplish nothing, then why would you go on this trip? This trip is designed to accomplish something. And that something is to be seen as giving peace a chance before Russia finishes this war. Russia's on the cusp of destroying Ukraine right now. I know, guys, we've all read the Western media and it says that Russia's losing, Putin has cancer, and all this stuff. But that's all a lie. Russia's winning the war. Ukraine's running out of ammunition. They're running out of men. Russia has a lot of ammunition, has a lot of men, and it's just the writing's on the wall. So there's a feeling right now that Zelensky is in a very difficult spot, because up until now, Zelensky has said, we're not going to negotiate with Russians. Putin has to leave. You have to give us Crimea back, all this kind of stuff. But now the West is sort of telling Zelensky, you're going to die. It's just that simple. You're going to lose the war, then you're going to die. And there's nothing we can do about that. And Zelensky's like, well, I don't want to die. And you're telling me I can't win the war. But what other options do I have? I've been shutting down every peace plan in the world, but not the Chinese peace plan. And so the Chinese are going to come in and talk with Putin. And I think they're going to get Putin to agree to a framework, a peace framework, that if presented to Zelensky and Zelensky accepts it without change, this isn't going to be a negotiation. This is going to be a dictation. This is what you have to accept. And if Zelensky says no, then the Chinese said, we gave it the good college try. Vlad, underlay, arriba, finish the job. And the Russians will go in and finish the job. And Zelensky will die and the West will be embarrassed. But now if they come in and they tell, and what I don't know what it is, but I listened to Vladimir Putin, so I think I know what could be in it. What's going to be in it, I believe, is absolute sovereignty over the 4 territories that were annexed last September and continued sovereignty over Crimea. So Ukraine will have to acknowledge that they lose these territories forever. That is Russia from now on. It's never getting it back. That's a tough pill to swallow. But Putin has said, we believe in demilitarization. That used to be the total annihilation of the Ukrainian army. But in his February 21st speech, Putin said, we will retake all of Russian territory, and then we will push the Ukrainians back to the maximum range of the most modern system provided to them by the West, which is the HIMARS system with the small bomb unit. That's 150 kilometers. So he's saying we're going to push the Ukrainian military back. Now, listen to what he's saying there. 150 kilometers from Russian border. So that means that the territory that Russia's going to push them back, Russia's not claiming is Russia yet. But look at what is 150 kilometers away from the Russian border. The city of Odessa, a Russian city. The city of Dnipropetrovsk, a Russian city. The city of Kharkov, a Russian city. So once Russia actually does this, these Russian cities will become real Russian cities. And then we start all over again. And that's the inevitability. Zelensky has to know right now that this war doesn't end if Russia is allowed to push forward, because they're going to lose all the Black Sea coast. They're going to lose all this territory that's east of the Dnieper River. And Ukraine will be nothing. There'll be nothing left. And he's going to die. Zelensky will die. So what the Russians are saying is, if you agree to this peace plan, you will withdraw your military 150 kilometers away from the border. There will be a demilitarized zone here. It'll still be Ukraine. It's yours. Odessa is yours. Dnipropetrovsk is yours. Kharkov is yours. But your military can't be anywhere near this. And what's interesting is the implication is that the Ukrainian military gets to keep all the toys that they've been given. So it's not demilitarization. So that's sort of a face-saving thing. And that's a tough pill, because remember, you have this army that's engaged in this big fight, and you don't want a stab in the back moment like what happened to the German army in World War I, where they suddenly the war ended, they went home and they're like, well, we were still fighting. You guys stabbed us in the back. You don't want a Ukrainian army that says the same thing, because that becomes a political problem. So you allow Ukraine to save face, preserve their army, but there's a 150-kilometer demilitarized zone. that'll be in place, and they'll never join NATO again. Sounded harsh maybe 3 months ago, but today, when you compare that to you're going to lose everything and you're going to die, that suddenly what goes, wait a minute, you mean we get to keep these cities? It's Ukraine, we get the Black Sea coast, and we get to keep our army? Yeah. Sign me up. And, that may be the thing. So that, I don't know. I haven't read the peace plan, but I do listen to Vladimir Putin, and I know he doesn't speak, half-cocked. And he gave that speech after he was briefed on the Chinese peace plan. So that speech, I believe, conforms his understanding of conditions that would have to be in play if the peace plan went forward. So I think there's reason to believe that that could be part of this, because, Z isn't going to sit down with Zelensky to do a video conference and hand him a plan that's designed to fail. He has to give him a plan that has I was going to say, oh gosh, I got to watch what I say. See, I'm just one of these idiot Marines that, they gave me a whole bunch of sayings in my head. And back when I learned the sayings, they weren't a problem. But now when you say it, you're like, that sounds pretty bad. So I can't say it. But they're going to give him I'll say, you can't give him a plan that has a snowball's chance in hell of succeeding. You have to give him a plan that's viable. And if they give this to Zelensky and he turns it down, the Chinese at least can say, in good faith, we tried to do this. And we wash our hands of what's about to happen. It's on Zelensky. It's on the West. Russia now has a free hand. But if they get the peace, it'll be a tough pill for Russia to swallow. It really will be a tough pill for Russia to swallow because they've lost a lot of men. They feel betrayed by the West. Why would they enter into an agreement that keeps Zelensky and the Nazis in power? But it does bring an end to this war, and it creates the opportunity now for China, because here's one of the biggest problems out there. $1 trillion of infrastructure damage has been done to Ukraine. Ain't no one got $1 trillion out there to pay for this, except the Chinese. And so China is going to sit there and tell Zelensky, all this damage stuff, the West is bankrupt. They ain't giving you any more money, pal. Russia, they don't like you. They're going to be building their own stuff up. China, on the other hand, we can come in, we can do business. And we'd like to bring in our Belts and Roads Initiative, come in and build up your trains and up your highways. All those high-speed trains that work in China can work in Ukraine too. We can transform your society and make it a good place and make you a power that could join the European Union, because Russia's not going to say no to the European Union. That's their business. Russia cares about Russia. Russia's done with Europe, but it could also create the conditions where Europe and Russia are able to peacefully coexist together. Now we get that European security framework that Russia always wanted. So there's a lot of good things that could come from this, from a peace treaty. It's an uphill struggle, but that's why Xi Jinping's visiting Moscow.
Well, wouldn't Ukraine lose all of its strategic utility to the West if Russia, they take the Donbass, they now control the Sea of Azov, and then they control the whole coastal area of what is formerly Ukraine, and they have all of the fertile land and everything for farming. Wouldn't Ukraine lose all of its geostrategic utility for the West after that?
Ukraine only exists to create conflict with Russia. And so if Zelensky buys into whatever peace plan is put in front of him, what he's basically saying is, I choose peace, not war. And the day of Western manipulation of Ukraine is over. I'm opting for the survival of Ukraine. And here's the deal. There's a growing awakening in the West that we've lost this conflict. I mean, we're just admitting that to ourselves. We can't supply them with anything else. Ukraine needs, I'm making it up, 1,000 units of artillery shells a month, and we can only provide them with 400 artillery shells a month. And if they're using 1,000, they're going to run out of the reserves. We can't replenish them. Then they don't have any artillery, and it's an artillery-driven war. And the Russians have a lot of artillery and a lot of ammunition, and Russia's going to win the war. There's nothing we can do to stop this. So from the West, the question is, you accept a peace that isn't a total defeat. In fact, you could claim, if you're the West, that suddenly you have to change your tune, though. The Russians stop being incompetent. You say, the overwhelming power of Russia was brought to a halt by the Ukrainians' resistance that was enabled by our assistance. And yes, this is not the ideal situation, but it could have been much worse because evil Putin wanted to eat all of Ukraine, and we able to stop him. And they can tell them themselves at night, read the little tales before they go to bed at night so they don't have nightmares.